The river is choking on black sails. In Pelagia, the wind comes wrong, cold off the sea, carrying a smell like wet iron and spoiled fruit. Men shout from the quays, then start to scream. A sailor collapses into the mud, skin already mottling, and the dock planks darken under him. Bells answer from the city, frantic, out of rhythm. On the white tower far upriver, a single lantern flares, then steadies, like a watchful eye above a drifting ash. If you want more Middle-earth what-ifs told like living history, leave a like and subscribe to join the road ahead. Share where you are watching from, and tell the comments what one choice you think breaks Gondor first: mercy, pride, or fear. The lantern on the white tower does not mean hope. It means a message has reached Minas Anor faster than any horse. The plague ship has arrived. King Telemnar hears it in the highest chamber, where the air is always cooler and the city's noise sounds like water over stone. He's not yet old, but he has the tired eyes of a man who has read too many reports of raids along the coasts and skirmishes in Ithilien. The messenger kneels, breath ragged, hands still smelling of tar. Black sails, the man says, from Umbar or farther. They came in under fog. Men are falling before we can lift them. Telemnar does not rise at once. He looks past the messenger through a narrow window slit toward the pale line of the Eiffel Duth in the far east, as if sickness might be seen crawling over the mountains. The steward beside him, a thin-lipped lord named Mardil, waits for panic. The king gives him none. How many are sick? Too many to count. A silence fills the room, and in it something older than any man's fear stirs: memory. Gondor has been wounded before by war, by winter, by famine. But this is a thing that arrives with trade and kisses and shared cups, a treason carried by breath. In Pelagia, the first dead are not heroes. They are the dock haulers who lift crates in the dawn, the women who sell onions and river fish, the boys who run messages for a copper coin. The city smells of river silt and sweat. Now it smells of sour bile. A fisherman named Erkamion tries to carry his brother home, arm over shoulder, feet slipping on wet stone. The brother's lips are purple, eyes glassy, and he whispers as if ashamed. It burns inside. Erkamion does not know what to do with that sentence. He keeps walking, because stopping feels like surrender. The first order from Minas Anor reaches Pelagia by horse and by riverboat, duplicated, sealed, and harsh enough to make grown men stare as if they have forgotten how to read. The king commands that the Harland be closed. No ship in or out, no cart through the gates. Any vessel that has anchored in the last 3 days is to be burned where it lies, goods and all, and any crew that resists is to be put to the sword. Mardil rides with the order and arrives to find Pelagia half mad with fear and half drunk on denial. Merchants shout that their fortunes are not kindling. Captains swear by the valor that their holds carry only wine and timber. A priest of the silent street lifts his hands and declares that sickness is a punishment for pride. Mardil says, if it is punishment, then the king will pay it in fire, so that the realm does not pay it in graves. At the river's edge, torches are brought. The first ship to burn is not black-sailed at all, but a grain cog from Lebanon that arrived the day before, crew laughing, bellies full. Its captain is a broad man with a gold ring in his ear. He falls to his knees on the plankway, clutching at Mardil's cloak. My wife is in the city, he begs. Let me go to her. Let me fetch my boy. Behind him, his mate coughs, a wet sound, Blood freckles the planks like rust. The captain's eyes fix on the blood and his voice breaks, suddenly small. I did not know. Mardil stands very still. He smells pitch. He smells fear sweat. The river wind carries the copper tang of sickness. Neither did the rat, Mardil says, and gives the signal. The torches touch tar. Flames climb as if eager. The grain cog becomes a floating furnace, and when the mast collapses, it throws sparks across the water like a flock of burning birds. People scream, not only those condemned, but the watchers, because they understand what is being done to their lives. A woman in a red shawl spits at the soldiers. A boy throws a stone and hits nothing. Erkamion, the fisherman, stands among them with his brother's weight still in his arms. The brother is not moving now. His hair smells of river and smoke. Erkamion watches the burning ships and feels something inside him harden, not into courage, but into a cold kind of obedience. If Gondor is saved, it will be saved by cruelty. The plague meets fire at the river mouth and does not pass. Weeks later, the sick tents outside Pelagir are empty. Now the priests of the silent street walk among rows of hastily dug graves anyway, because fear does not leave when its reason departs. The king's edicts remain posted on gates for a month, curling at the edges. Children dare each other to touch the wax seals. Minas Anor receives the tally. Thousands dead along the river towns, but the White City lives. The sickness does not climb the Anduin like a conqueror. It is damned by ash and iron will. Telemnar stands on the wall at dawn, watching sunlight spread over the Pelennor like spilled gold. He should feel relief. He feels only a quiet unease, because he understands the shape of what has happened. Gondor has learned a lesson, and lessons like that do not fade. A realm that saves itself with fire will reach for fire again. Years pass, and the absence of devastation is not an empty thing. It becomes a presence, visible in markets crowded with voices, in new roofs laid over old stone, in the laughter of apprentices in the guild halls. The great plague in other tales would have hollowed the cities, silenced whole streets, and left watchtowers unmanned. Here, the watchtowers remain full. Osgiliath does not become a half-ruin of echoing domes. It stays a beating heart on the Anduin, its bridges busy with carts and soldiers and singers on festival days. In Ithilien, orchards spread where, in darker timelines, only rangers would later creep. Peasants work under the shadow of the mountains of shadow, and they curse the wind when it comes from the east, because it always tastes faintly of dust. They hang bells in their trees, small copper chimes, believing the sound keeps evil away. A young woman named Linhabor, a daughter of a vine grower, walks the rows at dusk and listens to those bells and thinks, for a moment, that peace might be something you can plant, but Mordor does not care what men plant. Far away in the Shire, a hobbit child hears travellers in an inn speak of Gondor's river burning, and he imagines ships on fire like toys in a pond. He shivers and asks his mother why kings would burn their own people. His mother, who has never seen a king, says, "Because sometimes the world is wider than kindness." The child does not understand, but the sentence stays with him like a pebble in a shoe. The first turning of fate seems finished. Gondor has survived. Gondor is strong. The white tree blossoms in its court, and the king's line continues without the sudden severing that plague would have brought. Telemnar's son grows to manhood, and then his son after him. and the banner of the kings does not become a memory carried by stewards. People in the streets begin to speak a phrase that tastes like pride: Gondor unbroken. Strength attracts enemies as surely as weakness. In the year when Minas Ithil would, in another history, begin to dim under unseen pressure, this Minas Ithil is not a lonely outpost half forgotten. Its white walls are newly repaired. Its garrison is large enough to drill in the courtyards with room to spare. The palantir in its tower is guarded as a relic and a weapon both, and the captain of the tower, a stern lord named Calimir, insists on strict rules. No man looks into the seeing stone alone, no matter his rank. Calimir says it with the kind of certainty that tempts disaster. The stone has a voice, even when it is silent. It promises knowledge. It promises control. It promises that the East can be understood and therefore mastered. One night, under a thin moon, a messenger rides from Osgiliath to Minas Ithil with news of movement beyond the Morgai. Shadows are gathering in the ash valleys, too many to count, too disciplined to be mere orcs. Calimir reads the report, then walks alone into the chamber of the palantir. The guards at the door glance at each other. They should stop him. They do not, because he is Calimir, and because Gondor has not yet learned that pride is a sickness that does not show on the skin. He places both hands on the cold rim of the stone and leans in. At first, he sees only darkness and a faint sheen like oil on water. Then images sharpen. A vast plain under a lid of cloud smoke rising from Forge's ranks of orcs like ants, and in the distance, a shape like a crown of iron, half built, half awake. He hears no voice, but he feels attention turn toward him, slow and immense, as if something ancient has opened one lidless eye. Calimir tears himself away with a gasp. He staggers, gripping the table, and the guards rush in. "What did you see?" one asks. Calimir wipes sweat from his lip. It is cold sweat. His pupils are wide. "I saw that we are being measured," he says, "and I saw that the measure is not to our liking. Within a year, the Witch King comes. He does not come with 1,000 shrieking wraiths, because even he must adapt to a Gondor that still has full granaries and full muster fields. He comes as a pressure, as whispers among men east of the Anduin, as unrest in the villages nearest the dead marshes, where cattle are found with throats cut and strange marks drawn in ash. Then he comes with steel, a sudden assault on the bridges of Osgiliath, not to take the city, but to test it, to taste its blood. The king of Gondor at that time, Telematar's grandson, rides in person to Osgiliath. He is called Minadil, a man with a voice that carries over drums. He stands on the bridge and shouts to his soldiers, "Hold! The river is ours. The stones are ours. The living are ours." The first wave breaks on shields. The second wave climbs bodies. Fire arrows arc over the river like meteors and hiss in the water. The night becomes a confusion of torchlight, screams, and the hoarse calls of captains trying to keep lines from folding. On the eastern bank, Linhabor's husband, now a soldier, feels the mud suck at his boots as he braces his spear. He smells charred hair. He hears a creature laugh in a voice too thin to be human. He thinks of his orchard of bells in trees, and for the first time he understands that evil is not a story. It is weight. It is hunger. At dawn, the assault withdraws. Osgiliath stands. The bridges stand. Minas Ithil stands. This should be the moment where relief settles. It does not, because in the withdrawal there is a pattern, and the wise see it. Sauron, still hidden in the east, has learned that Gondor cannot be broken quickly. Therefore, it must be bent slowly. Mordor's shadow does not take Minas Ithil, and because of that one fact, a thread in the tapestry remains uncut. The Ithil stone stays in the hands of the West. Sauron does not gain the tool that, in other timelines, lets him peer into the minds of the proud. The kings of Gondor do not stare into despair until they burn from within, for the realm remains clear-eyed longer. The price is that the war does not arrive as a single storm. It arrives as weather that never fully clears. Decades turn into centuries. Gondor remains populous enough to send settlers back into lands long contested. The watch on the Morannon is maintained in force. Caer Andros is never left to a skeleton garrison. The rangers of Ithilien become less like ghosts and more like a standing army of woodsmen, their camps smelling of pine smoke and boiled rabbit, their laughter less desperate because there are enough of them to laugh. In Rohan, history still turns on hooves. The Eotheod still rides south when the Balshoth pour over the Anduin, because even a strong Gondor cannot be everywhere at once. But when Eorl the Young arrives at the field of Celebrant, he does not find a steward begging for survival. He finds a king's marshal, mailed and mounted, meeting him as one equal to another. After the battle, Eorl stands in the king's tent, the air thick with sweat and crushed grass. The Gondorian marshal offers him wine. Eorl does not drink at once. "What do you offer?" he asks bluntly. "A land to ride," the marshal says, "and an oath that binds us. Calenarden, as your people name it, if you will guard our flank against the darkness of the mountains." Eorl's eyes narrow. He is young, but he is not foolish. He hears, beneath generosity, the old Gondorian habit of ownership. "And if we refuse?" Eorl asks. "Then we will find other guards," the marshal replies. The sentence is calm. It is also a blade laid on a table. Eorl drinks then, and the wine tastes like iron. He swears, because his people need pasture, and because he has seen the east and knows what will come. Yet in his oath there is a seed of resentment, watered by pride. The Rohirrim ride into Calenardon as allies, but they never forget that they were invited with one hand and threatened with the other. This is the second turning point that could have ended the tale as triumph. Gondor and Rohan bound, two strong peoples standing shoulder to shoulder, a wall of horse and stone against the east. Songs are made. Children in Minas Tirith play at being riders with wooden swords. Riders in Edoras learn to speak a little Sindarin to impress Gondorian envoys. For a time, the world feels held. Then a whisper slips between the stones. In the halls of Meduseld, a Rohirric lord named Freyawiin grows wealthy trading horses to Gondor. He drinks wine from Dol Amroth and wears a silver brooch gifted by a Gondorian noble. He begins to speak of civilized ways and mocks old customs. Other lords snarl behind their beards. A prince of Gondor, sent as ambassador, hears those snarlings and writes home that Rohan is loyal but brittle and should be managed carefully. Sauron does not need to invent hatred. He only needs to feed it. A man comes to Edoras as a healer, claiming knowledge of herbs from the White Mountains. He treats a fevered child and accepts no payment. His hands are gentle. His eyes are always searching. He speaks softly to Freyawiin of how Gondor will one day demand more, how oaths are chains disguised as friendship. "Do you think they would let you be free if they could take your land with ink?" the healer asks. Freyawiin laughs, but the laughter sounds forced. "They are our allies. Today," the healer says, "and tomorrow The healer is not what he seems. He is a mouthpiece, a thread of a darker mind far away. He will vanish before anyone can name his betrayal, but his words stay, and words are often deadlier than knives. In Gondor, the kings grow accustomed to surviving. They see each crisis and overcome it, and that habit becomes an armor that muffles warning. The court in Minas Tirith becomes bright with banners and ceremonies. Princes are trained in swordplay and law. The white tree is tended like a sacred flame. Men from Lossarnach bring baskets of apples in autumn, their scent sharp and sweet beneath the stone arches. Smiths in the sixth circle hammer spearheads by lamplight, the rhythm steady as a heartbeat. Among those smiths is an old man named Hallas. His hands are scarred, his back bent, and he still remembers, as a boy, the smell of burning ships on the Anduin. He has told the story to his grandchildren, always ending the same way. Gondor chose fire, and fire saved us. One grandson, eager and sharp-tongued, asks him, "Would you burn us too, if the king commanded it?" Hallas stares at the forge a long time before answering. The coals glow like a small hell. "I do not know," he says at last, and hates himself for the truth. In the north, in Imladris, Elrond watches the long years and feels them like a river under ice. He has seen kingdoms rise and thin like smoke. This Gondor is thicker, louder, more certain of itself. It is also, to his eyes, more dangerous in its confidence. He speaks with Gandalf beside the Bruinen, their cloaks moving in the wind. If Gondor does not break, Gandalf muses, then the breaking may come elsewhere. Elrond's gaze drifts toward the distant misty mountains, blue with haze. "Where does a shadow go when it cannot enter by the gate?" he asks. It finds a crack. The question hangs, and in it lies a third turning point waiting like a trap. If plague did not hollow Gondor, then what hollows the West when the final war comes? The answer begins in a place that smells of parchment and candle wax. In Minas Tirith, a young royal scholar named Vorondil is granted access to records of the Palantiri and their use. He is brilliant, ambitious, and hungry for truth. He reads of Calamir's vision and concludes that the realm has been too timid. Knowledge is power, and power is survival. He convinces a prince of the blood, a man named Amandil, to look into the Ithilstone again, under supervision, for the good of the realm. "It is ours," Vorondil argues. "Why should we fear our own tool?" The chamber of the Seeing Stone is cold even in summer. Guards stand like statues. Amandil places his hands on the rim and leans in. For a time, he sees only the eastern marches, the ash plains, the dark watercourses, the smoke of furnaces. Then he sees something else, unexpected and intimate. A face. It is a man's face, pale and proud, crowned, eyes hard as flint. The face looks directly back, as if the stone were a window opened both ways. Amandil jerks away with a cry. He stumbles, nearly falling. Vorondil catches him, heart hammering. "Who was it?" Vorondil whispers. "Who did you see?" Amandil's hands shake. "A king," he breathes. "A king, but not ours." Vorondil feels ice slide down his spine. He should run to warn the court. Instead, his mind races with possibility. If there is another king, another claimant, another line, then Gondor's strength is not its shield. It is its prize. He tells no one what Amandil saw. This silence is a betrayal born not of malice, but of ambition. He wants to understand first. He wants secretly to be the man who saves Gondor with knowledge no other possesses. That is how cracks are made. Years later, when rumours of a chieftain of the Dunedain in the north begin to drift south like migrating birds, Vorondil is the one who listens too closely. He is older now, grey at the temples, but the hunger remains. He speaks privately with a captain of the guard named Baran, a man with a pragmatic soul and a scar across his jaw. They say Isildur's heir lives, Vorondil says. Baran shrugs. Many say many things. Vorondil leans forward. If he comes, he will claim a crown. If he claims it, what becomes of our king? Baran's eyes narrow. Our king remains. Vorondil lets the silence do its work. Baran is loyal, but loyalty can be sharpened into suspicion. Vorondil sees the blade forming and does not stop it. He tells himself it is for stability. In Rohan, suspicion becomes blood. A Gondorian tax collector is found dead near the borders of Calenadhon, throat cut, pockets turned out. Riders bring the body to a local lord, and the lord's men mutter that this is a message. The Gondorian envoy demands justice. The Rohirrim demand proof. Old resentments flare like dry grass. At a meeting on the plain, under a sky heavy with rain, swords are drawn too quickly. A young rider named Hildegrim, son of a respected marshal, steps forward to calm both sides. "We are not enemies," he says, voice carrying. "Do not make us into what the shadow wants." An arrow takes him in the throat. For a heartbeat, no one moves. The rain begins, cold and steady, tapping on helms. Hildegrim drops to his knees, hands clutching at the shaft, eyes wide with shock. Blood bubbles at his lips. He falls face first into the wet grass. Who loosed the arrow? A Rohirric hothead, eager for war? A Gondorian archer ordered by some hidden hand? Or a stranger in the crowd, smiling beneath a hood? The uncertainty is the point. Men shout. Horses rear. Steel flashes. By the time order is restored, 3 more are dead, and the plain smells of mud and blood and trampled flowers. That night, a fire burns in a Rohirric hall, not for warmth, but for anger. Hildegrim's father sits beside his son's body, hands clenched until the knuckles whiten. A Gondorian captain, captured in the chaos, is dragged before him. The captain's name is Baran. Baran spits blood from a split lip. "We did not shoot your boy." The father's voice is a rasp. Then who did? Baran meets his gaze. He thinks of Vorondil's questions, of whispers about northern kings, of the way fear is used like a rope. "The shadow," Baran says, "and men who think they can hold it." The father laughs once, a sound like bark cracking. "That is not an answer. It is the only one that matters," Baran replies. Baran will not survive the night. A knife in the dark ends him before any ransom can be discussed. His death is not demanded by honor. It is arranged because a dead man cannot speak of what he suspected, and because someone in the crowd wants Gondor and Rohan to bleed separately. In Minas Tirith, Vorondil hears of Baran's death and feels an unexpected pang. He had not meant for it to go that far. He tells himself again that the realm must be stable. Yet stability built on buried truths becomes a tomb. The war that follows is not declared with banners. It is fought in delays, in cold silences between allies, in patrols that do not ride to aid each other as quickly as they once did. Sauron watches from the east, patient. His servants raid border villages, and each time they leave behind signs meant to provoke blame. A Rohirric token on a murdered Gondorian farmer, a Gondorian coin placed in the mouth of a slain rider. The ordinary people suffer first. A woman in Anorian finds her barn burned and does not know whom to hate. A shepherd boy in Rohan finds his flock slaughtered and swears vengeance against a name he cannot prove. Is this what strength buys when it refuses to bend toward trust? By the time the year of the ring's finding comes, the West is strong in stone and steel, yet frayed in spirit. When Bilbo Baggins takes a small gold ring in the dark of the misty mountains, nothing in Gondor's records marks the moment. Minas Tirith is busy repairing walls, strengthening river forts, commissioning new ships for the coasts. The kings of Gondor look outward, always outward, because the realm has learned to fear invasion, not quiet corruption. Gandalf, wandering and watchful, feels the pressure of time like a hand closing. He comes to Minas Tirith years before he would have in other histories, seeking old lore. The court receives him politely. Wizards are useful, but they are also unsettling. A king does not like to be reminded that his realm is part of a world where older powers still move unseen. Gandalf is granted access to archives, where he meets Vorondil at last, now a high scholar with keys on his belt and influence in his voice. "I seek writings on the rings," Gandalf says. Vorondil studies him with calm curiosity. Many seek many things. Why now? Because the shadow grows, Gandalf answers, and because there is a small thing in the north that may matter more than armies. Vorondil smiles faintly. Small things do not decide the fate of kingdoms. Gandalf's eyes harden. They do when great things grow blind. For a moment, Vorondil feels the old chill of the Palantir chamber, the memory of Amandil's cry. He almost speaks then. He almost tells Gandalf what was seen in the Ithilstone long ago, the face of a king not theirs. But pride keeps his mouth shut. If he confesses, he must admit his silence, and silence has become his habit. He helps Gandalf find the scrolls anyway. He tells himself that is enough. When the truth of the One Ring becomes clear, when Gandalf rides from the Shire with dread in his bones, the war in the south is already stirring. Mordor's armies muster. The Black Gate is no longer merely watched. It is hammered from within by forces that have waited for a moment of weakness. Gondor's king at this time is Ithilien, a man of iron discipline and careful mercy. He has seen plague avoided, invasions repelled, alliances strained. He believes in plans. He believes in walls. He believes that the realm's survival is a matter of correct decisions. He does not believe, at first, in a hobbit's burden. In the council chamber, under banners and maps, Gandalf speaks of the ring and the need for secrecy. The king listens, fingers steepled, and his captains exchange skeptical glances. A halfling, one murmurs. Ithilien's son, Prince Boromir, stands near the table, tall and bright-eyed, a man made for songs. He has fought on the Anduin's banks since boyhood. He has carried dead friends from skirmishes and watched villages burn. He hears of a weapon that could end this war, and something in him ignites. "Why should we hide it?" Boromir asks, voice controlled but intense. "Why should we send it into darkness with weak hands? We have the strength of Gondor unbroken. We can use it." Gandalf says, "No one can use it. It will use them." Boromir's gaze flicks to his father, searching. Ithilien's face remains unreadable. In his heart, he feels temptation, not because he is foolish, but because he is responsible for a realm of millions. What is one hobbit's soul against the lives of cities? What is one risk against the certainty of siege? Faramir, Boromir's younger brother, speaks softly from the shadow of a pillar. "If the ring promises victory," he says, "why did it abandon its master? why does it return now, like bait on a hook? His question lands in the room like a pebble in a still pool, ripples spreading. It is one of the few questions that matters, and it will be answered later with blood. The Fellowship is formed with unusual watchers. Gondor insists on sending its own men to aid and guard the ring-bearer. 2 soldiers are chosen. A quiet archer from Ithilien named Duinhir, who smells of pine and has eyes like winter water, and a young captain named Mablung, ambitious and eager to impress Prince Boromir. They meet Frodo Baggins in Rivendell. The hobbit looks at their mail shirts and polished helms and feels very small. Samwise Gamgee stares at their swords as if they might bite. "They will slow us," Aragorn says quietly to Gandalf. "They will also betray you," Gandalf replies, just as quietly, because he has watched courts too long. Aragorn, the hidden heir of Isildur, says nothing. His jaw tightens. He has expected suspicion all his life, yet he also feels a strange sorrow, because in another world he might have returned to a city yearning for a king. Here, there is already a king, and a proud prince, and a scholar with secrets. Aragorn is not the center of prophecy in this timeline. He is a threat to order. The road south is hard as ever. Snow on Caradhras, wolves in the dark, the stink of Moriah's ancient dust. Gandalf falls with the Balrog as he does in every tale that deserves to be told. His fall is still a shock. It still tears a hole in the company's spirit. On the far side, in Lorien, Galadriel watches them with eyes like starlight on deep water. She looks at Frodo and sees the ring's weight. She looks at the Gondorian soldiers and sees the weight of another kind of temptation, duty twisted into possession. "Your realm survived fire," she says to Duinhir one night, her voice soft enough that only he hears. Will it survive desire? Duinhir cannot answer. He thinks of Pelagir's burning ships, a story his grandmother told him, and he realizes he has always admired that harsh salvation. Now he wonders if harshness can become a hunger of its own. When the company breaks, it breaks in a sharper way. At Amon Hen, as Boromir wrestles with his own desire and love for his people, it is not only his heart that is in danger. Captain Mablung receives a message carried by a fast rider from Gondor, a thin strip of parchment sealed with Vorondil's mark. He reads it in secret, lips moving. Bring the ring under guard to Minas Tirith. The king must decide. Mablung looks up and sees Frodo watching him from across the camp, the hobbit's face pale in the twilight. Frodo does not know what the message says, but he feels the shift in the air, the way a forest grows quiet when a predator enters. Mablung makes his choice. He walks to Boromir and speaks low. "My prince," he says, "we can end this. We can take it. We are commanded." Boromir's eyes blaze. For a moment, he is almost grateful. The burden of deciding would be lifted by obedience. Then Faramir's earlier question returns like a ghost. Why does it return now, like bait? Boromir swallows, and his voice is rough. "No," he says. "Not by force. Not like thieves." Mablung's expression tightens. "Then you will let Gondor die for a halfling's scruples?" Boromir steps closer, towering. "I will not let Gondor become what we fight." Mablung draws his sword. Duinhir moves like a shadow. His arrow is already nocked. He has a clear shot at Mablung's throat. His fingers tremble because he has never killed a man of Gondor. He thinks of duty. He thinks of the shadow. He thinks of the look in Frodo's eyes. The arrow flies. It strikes Mablung in the chest, not the throat, punching through mail into flesh. Mablung gasps, surprise more than pain, and drops to one knee. Blood darkens his tunic. He looks at Duinhir as if trying to understand. "You traitor," he whispers. Duinhir's voice cracks. "No," he says. "You are." Boromir catches Mablung as he falls, and for a moment it looks almost tender. Mablung dies in Boromir's arms, and in that death, something in Boromir breaks cleanly. He has just seen Gondor's strength turn inward, ready to devour itself. When the Uruk-hai attack, Boromir fights like a storm, not only for Merry and Pippin, but to drown his guilt in action. He dies as he always does, arrows in his body, kneeling in the leaf litter. Aragorn holds him, and Boromir's last words are not only apology, they are warning. "Do not trust the keys," he breathes. "The scholar. He will lock the realm." Aragorn looks up into the trees, hearing distant drums, and feels the road narrowing. A war is coming, and the West is already bleeding from inside. In Minas Tirith, King Ithilien receives news of Boromir's death and does not weep in public. He stands alone in the White Tower, hands braced on stone, and the city below sounds far away. Vorondil brings him reports with careful language, emphasizing the need for control, for certainty. The king listens, but grief has sharpened him. "What did you send to my son?" Ithilien asks quietly. Vorondil's throat tightens. "Only guidance," he says. Ithilien turns, and in his eyes is something that Vorondil has not seen before. Suspicion directed upward, toward those who advise. "Guidance kills as surely as swords," the king says. Vorondil bows. "All I do is for Gondor." The words are true in a way that makes them dangerous. The siege that follows is larger than any in living memory, because Gondor is larger. Mordor brings hosts to match. The Pelennor becomes a sea of tents and engines. The air tastes of smoke for days before the first stone is thrown. Ordinary men on the walls chew stale bread and listen to the distant roar like thunder that does not move on. In the lower circles, women boil water and sharpen knives, because even those who never trained for war know what happens when walls fail. The smell of tallow candles mixes with fir sweat. Children are sent into cellars. The white tree's leaves tremble in a wind that seems to come from the east, even when the breeze blows from the sea. On the first night of bombardment, a new terror arrives. Not a battering ram, not a troll, not a Nazgul's scream. A cloth-wrapped bundle is hurled over the wall by a catapult and bursts in a courtyard with a wet sound. It is a corpse, swollen and mottled, riddled with black sores. Men recoil. One gags. A priest murmurs a prayer and backs away. A healer named Ioreth, old and sharp-eyed, is pushed forward by necessity. She leans close, sniffing despite herself. Her face hardens. "This is sickness," she says, "not a common fever." The memory of Pelagir's burning ships rises in the city like smoke. The king is told at once. His jaw tightens, and for the first time in years he feels the cold edge of that old choice, fire or mercy. "Quarantine," he commands. "Seal the courtyards. Burn what must be burned." In the streets, people argue. "Burn our homes," a baker cries, flour dusting his beard like snow. "We are not ships," a soldier answers, voice flat. "Then do not become them." The dread returns, but transformed. It is not only fear of Mordor's armies, it is fear of what Gondor will do to itself to survive. The realm that avoided plague once now faces a weaponized echo, flung by an enemy that learned patience. Rohan comes, as it always must, because some bonds survive sabotage. Theoden rides at the head of his riders, and the thunder of hooves is like hope given sound. Yet when he reaches the city, he does not find a despairing steward. He finds a king with strict orders and gates half closed not only against orcs, but against sickness. At the great gate, Theoden is met by Prince Faramir, now the heir, mail gleaming, eyes tired. "We are glad you came," Faramir says, and means it. Theoden's gaze flicks to the smoke rising from sealed courtyards within the walls. "And are we welcome?" he asks. Faramir hesitates. The king fears plague. Theoden's mouth tightens. He fears it more than he trusts us. Faramir's voice is low. He fears what he has done before to stop it. The battle on the Pelennor is immense. Gondor's armies pour from the gates in greater numbers than any song remembers. The Rohirrim crash into Mordor's flank. The Mumakil still come, towers swaying, and men die under their feet like ants. The Witch King still descends on wings of terror, but his prey is different now. He seeks not a steward to break, but a king to shatter. He finds Ithilien on the field, surrounded by guards. The king's helm is white, his sword bright, his horse frothing. The Nazgul's voice is like frost on bone. "King of proud stones," it says, "you burn your own. You will burn too." Ithilien lifts his sword, and for a moment he looks like the statues of ancient kings carved in the city's halls. "I have burned to save," he answers. "What have you burned for?" The Witch King laughs, and the sound kills courage in men's throats. Their hands shake on spear shafts. Then Éowyn stands between them, as she does in every telling that honors her. She is not less fierce because Gondor is stronger. She is fiercer because she has watched men argue over gates while death gathers. "I will burn you," she whispers, and drives her blade. The Witch King falls, but not before his flail strikes. It catches Ithilien across the chest with a crunch that is heard even over the battle's roar. The king collapses, blood darkening his surcoat, eyes wide with surprise not at pain, but at the sudden end of plans. Faramir reaches him too late. He kneels in the mud, hands pressing uselessly to a wound that will not be stopped. Ithilien's breath rattles. His fingers clutch at Faramir's wrist. "Do not lock the realm," he whispers, words broken. "Open it." Faramir swallows hard. "Father, fire. Saved us," Ithilien breathes. "But do not become fire." He dies there, not in a tower, not in despair, but in the open air under a sky choked with smoke, and the realm feels the loss like a sudden hollowing. Gondor, unbroken, has lost its king at the moment of its greatest defense. Victory and grief arrive together, tangled. This is the fourth turning point that could have been an ending. The Pelennor won, the Witch King destroyed, Mordor pushed back by force of arms, and horse lords and stubborn stone. Men on the walls cheer until their voices crack. Bells ring, wild and joyous. In the houses of healing, Eoreth laughs through tears and says, "We have done it. The darkness is turned. Relief floods the city like sunlight after storm. Then disquiet follows, because the war is not finished and because something else spreads." In the sealed courtyards, soldiers have begun to cough. The sickness does not take the city in a single sweep, because Gondor has practice now at harsh mercy. Those who show symptoms are isolated at once. Families are separated by force. Doors are barred. Fires are lit in empty streets, smoke rising in columns. The stench of burning cloth and herbs fills the air. People cover their mouths with scarves. Their eyes watch each other with suspicion. Faramir, now king, walks among them in plain armor, refusing to hide. He speaks to a woman whose husband has been taken away. "He will die alone," she says, voice shaking. Like a dog, Faramir's throat tightens. "He will not," he says. "Not if I can help it." He goes to the houses of healing and finds a man there with a weathered face and the posture of a ranger. Aragorn has arrived under a banner, not of kingship, but of necessity, drawn by the battle and by the path of the ring-bearer that still winds unseen toward doom. Faramir looks at him and feels something strange. Not rivalry, but recognition, as if he has been waiting for this meeting without knowing it. Aragorn smells of rain and steel and long roads. He looks at the sick and does not flinch. Ioreth bustles forward. "My lord," she says to Faramir, then looks at Aragorn and squints. "And who is this?" "He has the hands, if you take my meaning." Aragorn says, "I am a healer." Faramir's voice is quiet. "We need more than healing. We need hope that does not turn into cruelty." Aragorn meets his gaze. "Then do not let fear be your law." They speak long into the night, and in their conversation, a revelation unfolds, not as thunder, but as dawn. Aragorn tells of the north, of the long guarding of broken lands, yet of a lineage that has waited. Faramir listens, and in his heart he feels the weight of a crown that arrived through death and smoke. He does not cling to it as Boromir might have. He holds it as one holds a burning coal, carefully, knowing it can wound. "Do you come to claim?" Faramir asks at last. Aragorn's answer is unexpected in its restraint. "I come because the world ends if we fail," he says. "If you ask me to lead, I will. If you ask me to serve, I will. But do not make this about my name. Make it about what we must do." Outside, the city's fires crackle. Somewhere a child coughs, thin and frightened. The ordinary sounds of suffering stitch themselves into the great tapestry of war, reminding the mighty that the realm is not banners. It is breath. Far away, beyond all these battles, two small figures crawl through ash and stone. Frodo and Sam still cross the dead lands of Mordor, because in the end, the great wars are decided by the smallest endurance. They hear distant thunder that might be battle, might be doom. They see the red glare on the clouds and smell brimstone. Their tongues are cracked, their feet bleed. Gollum follows like hunger given shape. Frodo, delirious, remembers the story of burning ships from an inn in Bree, half forgotten. He whispers, "Fire saved them." Sam, eyes rimmed red, says, "Fire can save, and fire can take. Keep moving." When Frodo claims the ring at the cracks of doom, the moment still twists the world. Sauron, lacking the Ithilstone that once gave him sharper sight into his enemies, has been more uncertain, more brutal, more focused on breaking Gondor by plague and war. He has not imagined a hobbit's will could reach the heart of his land. Yet when the ring is claimed, he knows in a flash, and his attention turns like a mountain moving. The eye does not fall upon Minas Tirith first in this timeline. It falls upon the very edge of its own ruin. Gollum bites. Frodo screams. Sam lunges. The ring falls, a circle of gold spinning in red light, and for one terrible heartbeat, it seems to hover, as if the world itself holds its breath. Then it is gone into fire. Barad-dûr cracks like an egg under a hammer. The towers sway, crumble, and collapse into a storm of dust. The Nazgûl, already broken by the fall of their captain, shriek into nothingness. The Black Gate shudders. The ash clouds roll outward, and the land of Mordor seems to exhale its long-held poison. In Minas Tirith, people feel the change before they understand it. The air tastes cleaner. The oppressive weight that has pressed on minds for years lifts like a hand removed from a throat. Soldiers on the walls look east and see, far away, a darkness collapsing into itself. Relief is a physical thing. Men sob. Women laugh and clutch each other. Someone kneels in the street and kisses the stone. Bells ring again, but this time they are not frantic. They are almost disbelieving. Faramir stands before the white tree and closes his eyes. For the first time since his father's death, his shoulders loosen. "It is done," he whispers. Disquiet follows, quiet as a rat's footstep, because victory does not heal all wounds. The sickness in the courtyards has not vanished with Sauron's fall. It is lessened, its malice drained, but men are still dying of fever and lungs full of fluid. The healers still burn bedding. The smell of smoke still stains the dawn. And then there is Vorondil. He is found not in his chambers, but in the Palantir room of Minas Tirith, where the Arnor stone rests like a dark moon. Guards burst in to find him with his hands on the stone, sweat pouring down his face, eyes wide in a terror that has no object now that Sauron is gone. He babbles, voice hoarse. A king not ours, a face. It looked back. It always looked back. Faramir arrives flanked by soldiers and his heart sinks. He sees at once what has happened. Vorondil has spent years peering into shadows and has been shaped by them. Even without Sauron holding an Ithilstone, even without the Dark Lord's direct grasp, a man can destroy himself with obsession. "Take him," Faramir orders softly. Vorondil claws at the stone. "I saved you," he gasps. "I kept the realm stable. I kept it from splintering." Faramir's voice is colder than he expects. "You kept it afraid." Vorondil's eyes flick to Aragorn, who stands in the doorway like a storm held in a man's body. "You," Vorondil hisses. "You are the face. You are the other king." Aragorn does not deny it. He simply watches, sorrow in his eyes, because he sees a man ruined not by plague or orcs, but by the hunger to control fate. Vorondil dies 3 days later in a fever, not from the plague of Mordor, but from something simpler. His heart stops, exhausted by years of clenched fear. His death is quiet. No song is made, yet it leaves a lesson like a bruise. In the weeks after Sauron's fall, the transformed world reveals itself in small things first. Ithilien, long contested, opens like a hand unclenching. Farmers return, stepping carefully through fields where old bones lie half buried. Linhabor, now old, walks among the trees her father planted and hears bells again. The bells sound the same. She is different. She touches a scar on her wrist from a raid years ago and whispers to the wind, "We are still here." In Rohan, Theoden returns with fewer riders than he brought. The plains are quieter. The grass is still green, but it seems to him that every breeze carries names of the dead. Eowyn limps through Meduseld, her arm bound, and looks at the golden roof, and feels no triumph, only a fierce gratitude that she can still see sunlight. In the Shire, the war's end is a distant rumour carried by travellers. Yet when the hobbits return, they bring with them a heaviness that does not fit the gentle hills. Sam plants in his garden with hands that have touched ash and blood. Frodo sits under a tree and listens to the wind and cannot fully come back. Even in peace, shadows remain, because the world has been seen too clearly. In Gondor, Faramir faces the question that Telemnar faced long ago at Pelagir, now transformed. The realm is victorious. The king is dead. The people are strong. What will they become? Aragorn meets Faramir in the court of the fountain at dawn. The white tree's leaves glisten with dew. The air smells of wet stone and faint smoke. A bird sings, tentative, as if unsure whether it is safe. Faramir speaks first. "My father told me not to become fire," he says, "but fire saved us once." Aragorn answers with a long breath. "Fire is a tool," he says. "It is also a temptation. It feels like control." Faramir looks toward the city below, where workers rebuild damaged walls and where families still mourn behind shuttered windows. "What is a king for?" he asks, one of the last questions that matters. "To keep order, to keep life, to keep honor." Aragorn's voice is quiet. "To keep the realm human," he says, "even when fear offers a simpler path." Faramir does not offer Aragorn the crown of Gondor, because in this world, Gondor has not needed a returned king to fill a vacant throne. Instead, he offers him something more fragile, a place beside him, an alliance of bloodlines not through conquest, but through choice. "Stay," Faramir says. "Help me rebuild a realm that did not break, and therefore never learned how to mend." Aragorn bows his head. "I will," he says. The immediate aftermath is filled with rebuilding and burial. Stones are reset. Fields are replanted. The sick slowly recover. And those who do not are given funerals without haste, because haste belongs to fear. The burned courtyards are scrubbed. The smell of smoke fades from the city's dawns, yet the disquiet does not vanish. Gondor has survived without being hollowed by plague centuries ago, and that survival has made it greater, louder, more capable of shaping the world around it. In the Fourth Age, Gondor's ships range farther. Its laws reach into borderlands where once only local custom ruled. Its soldiers patrol roads that used to belong to wandering folk. Some call it peace, some call it dominion. In a tavern in Lebanon, an old man tells a younger one, "We are safe because we were hard." The younger man asks, "And if hardness becomes our only habit?" The old man has no answer. He drinks, and the ale tastes bitter. Faramir grows into his kingship with caution. He opens the gates to Rohan with ceremony and genuine warmth, determined to heal the frayed bond that Sauron tried to snap. Theoden, old and tired, clasps his forearm. "We bled together," Theoden says. "Do not let men with keys and ink pull us apart again." Faramir nods. "Never again," he promises, and means it, though promises are not shields against time. Aragorn travels north at last, not as a claimant, but as a bridge. He visits the ruins of Arnor and the green quiet of the Shire, where he stands under a party tree and hears laughter that sounds like a miracle. He returns south carrying simple gifts: a pipe carved by a hobbit, a packet of earth from Galadriel's Malin, a memory of how small lives endure without banners. Years later, in Minas Tirith's archives, a young scribe finds an old record from Telemnar's reign, the order to burn ships at Pelagir. The wax seal is cracked, the ink is faded, yet the words still cut. The scribe reads them and feels a chill, imagining flames on water, imagining screams. He brings the record to an older archivist and asks, "Was this necessary?" The archivist, whose hair is white as ash, says, "It saved us." The scribe presses, voice trembling with the courage of youth. "And what did it teach us?" The archivist looks at him for a long time, then turns his gaze toward the window, toward the white city, gleaming, strong, unbroken, and perhaps therefore always one choice away from breaking something else. "It taught us," the archivist says at last, "that we can survive anything if we are willing to pay any price." Outside, the sun sets behind Mindluin, pouring gold over the terraces. The city's lamps begin to glow one by one, steady as watchful eyes. Far below, on the Anduin's darkening water, a small barge drifts past the quays, and on its prow, a single rat sits very still, whiskers twitching, waiting for the next time men decide that fire is mercy.